When today's episode starts, Oren was looking back and shouting toward the house, "It's now! Please beat these bastards up, Mr. Hegel! Why aren't you coming out? Mr. Hegel! Mr. Hegel! You have to give these guys a good scolding." Meanwhile, Hegel was hiding and looking through the window at this scene. Hegel started to think in fear, "Holy crap! That darned cat bastard!" Seeing that Hegel was doing nothing, Israel asked in confusion, Mr. Hegel? My son is calling for you. Are you not going to come out?" While sweating, Hegel was thinking, he said, "I could just give a good scolding to the bastard impersonating the Black Dragon. But why is Lord Iona here? That Oren bastard. He made me a fool." Right now even Israel was freaking out because he heard that Iona is the leader of the Magician Association. Meanwhile, Oren was freaking out and trembling outside the manor. Then Iona looked at the manor and with great anger called out, "Hegel, you're there, aren't you? I can sense you. Please come out." Hearing Iona call him, Hegel came out in a lightning speed. Then he stopped in front of Iona and bowed in a respectful manner. Seeing Hegel made Elka and other wolves to freak out. Theo looked at trembling Elka and asked, "Do you know each other?" Then Elka started explaining, "He's a high-ranking free mercenary, so he's famous in our world. What's a him person like doing here? And what's his relationship with Lord Iona?" While bowing down, Hegel said, "I humbly greet Lord Iona." "It's been a long time, Hegel," Iona replied. Then again she asked in anger, "What's going on here? Please explain. Are you trying to kill me? Who is your employer?" as that black cat said. While trembling with fear, Hegel started talking, "Of course not. I never imagined you to be here. I was only deceived by his words." Looking at this scene, everyone got surprised. Then Elka said, "Lord Iona is Hegel's employer." Theo also joined the conversation and asked, was he the one she had to meet in the Grana village? Then Israel barged into the conversation saying, "Oh my! To think the great Archmage would come to this lowly place." Looking at Israel, Iona asked, "Who are you?" And Israel introduced himself as Oren's father. Israel punched Oren and started to blame him, "You foolish bastard. How could you go around causing troubles like this?" But soon after Iona heard these words, she paralyzed Israel too. Israel got so scared by this. Iona shouted at Israel, "You're too loud. Please stay quiet there until I finish my business here." Then Iona looked at Hegel and said, "I heard about you on the way here. It seems like you failed my commission." Hegel started to reply in a disappointed manner, "That's correct. We failed in subduing the frogs." Hearing this, Theo got surprised and said, "Are you referring to the frogs spreading across Lake Zenka?" Then Iona spoke in a serious voice, "A while ago, we detected an anomaly in the tower. We discovered that an otherworldly force was leaking in from somewhere and is gathering at the center of Lake Zenka. The cause was the abnormal spawning of frog queen eggs. If left unchecked, it could lead to the extinction of all aquatic life on the 55th floor, so we needed to take action. The Magic Tower is busy dealing with the 67th floor's problem right now, so I left this case for Hegel to take care of." But the result of it, listening to Iona's disappointed manner, Hegel sadly said, "I have no excuses. When we arrived, several thousands of frogs had already hatched. We tried to take care of it as best as we could, but there were too many of them, and there's a limit to our ability to fight in water." Hearing excuses, Iona got furious and yelled at Hegel, "Do you expect me to believe that? Wasn't it supposed to be a relatively simple task from the beginning? You just had to go into the underwater cave early and deal with the eggs? You couldn't even manage to do that, and the entire village has been affected because of that right now." Hearing to Iona's furious words, Hegel kept his head down. Then again he said, "We did go on the day we had planned to, but they were all already hatched." Then Iona shouted again, "You should have moved faster. You should have identified their pattern earlier." After saying this, Iona started to levitate into the air. Then she said, "Excuses are crimes. You get it, right?" And she started to conjure a massive fireball attack. Seeing the massive fireball, sweat started to drip down from Hegel. Iona with glowing purple eyes shouted, "Take your punishment. Together with those ungrateful cats." Hearing this, Oren and Israel started to cry with fear. Iona kept pouring power to the fireball and shouted, "I shall destroy this entire place." Theo and the White Wolves looked at this scene with an amazement. Seeing the size of the fireball, Elka shouted at Iona, "Such enormous energy, we won't leave unscathed either." Even Theo started to shout at Iona, "Stop it, Iona. Do you not hear me, Iona?" Then Theo started to bang on the energy barrier. Then he saw the energy ball is cracking. Meanwhile, Iona was ready to launch the attack. She looked like an angry god and said, "Begone in the sea of fire." But all of a sudden Theo jumped on Elka's back. Then onto Elka's head, and one last time he took a massive jump toward Iona. Seeing Theo, Iona got bit confused. But in an instant Theo started to fall down. Luckily he was able to hold on to Iona's magic wand. Iona screamed at Theo and asked, "What are you doing, Theo?" Theo, afraid, shouted, "I'm falling down. I'll fall down." But Iona shouted back, "You're a cat, so you should be fine even if you fall from this height." But Theo started to explain fast, "It's not safe. Everyone will be swept in your attack and fall into danger. Are you going to leave me in danger?" Hearing these words, Iona calmed down a bit. She looked at Theo and said, "No, because you're the Black Dragon's subordinate." Then while holding Theo, Iona looked at the massive fireball. Then she flicked her finger. With that gesture the fireball exploded in the sky. This strange scene made Hegel so surprised. With his mouth open, Hegel started thinking. He stopped the furious Iona, something no one can even dare to, and ever made her retract her attack magic. Is he really the Black Dragon's subordinate? That normal-looking yellow cat. Meanwhile Iona and Theo safely landed on the ground. Theo looked so happy because he was able to avoid a massive destruction. Then Elka came near Theo and said, "You surprised us, Boss Theo. To think you'd step on my head and jump." But Theo said, "If it weren't for you, Elka, I wouldn't have been able to reach Iona." Then Theo wiped away sweat from his forehead and said, "Phew. I almost couldn't get my 1,000 tower coins from Oren." Hearing this statement, Iona asked, "Did you stop me for those petty pennies?" So Theo started explaining, "No. I must get more money from that rebel who dared to commit insubordination. That bastard is rich. He'll likely be carrying plenty of valuable treasures, like that potion from before that can nullify contracts." Then Theo smiled and looked at Iona and asked, "What do you say? Would you like to rob away those bastards' treasury with me? Isn't that the perfect price for their crimes?" So Iona let out an innocent smile and happily said, "Very well. Let's do it." But after hearing this conversation, Oren and Israel was crying their eyes out with sadness. After entering the mansion, everyone's mouths opened with amazement. Theo said, "Wow. This is impressive." Then everyone started to loot the place. While collecting some gold, Theo said to Elka, "Take these. Let's sell them all at the merchant village." Looking at the scene, Oren held his head with both arms and said, "Good heavens." Meanwhile Iona walked toward a bookshelf. This made her so surprised and she said, "No way. Why are the rare magic books here?" Israel came near Iona while scratching his head and said, "I have a hobby of collecting ancient books. You may take all you want." Iona chuckled and said, "These precious things? Then, I shall not refuse." Then like a child so toys, Iona started to gather magical books saying, "This? Collection of Bird That Eats Fur. Dragon Lagna. Fundamentals of Magic First Edition. Oh my. I must take this." All Israel could do was in this situation is stand back and look. Theo also found a necklace and looking at it he said, "This looks expensive." At that moment Hegel came near Theo and asked, "Do you have a moment?" Hearing this Theo got a bit startled. Hegel called Theo with great respect and said, "Sir Theo," and all of a sudden he kneeled down in front of Theo and started to beg, "Please take us, the Black Wolf tribe, under you." This request made Theo so confused, even the necklace in his hand fell down. Looking at Hegel, Theo shouted, "What's going on all of a sudden?" Meanwhile we could see the 99th floor manager space. Eileen was waking up after a good night's sleep. She happily said while sitting on the bed, "I had a good sleep, so my body feels so refreshed." Then she took out magic orb while thinking, what would Sejuan be doing right now? The orb started to glow in red color. All of a sudden lot of messages started to pop up, startling Eileen. A system message said, "You have more than 1,000 unread alerts. Please check your alerts." Eileen looked at the screens and said, "It has gotten this bad just because I hadn't for a day. Check them, there are so many red alerts." After checking few messages she looked so bored. So she said, "I can't be bothered. Delete. Delete." Then she smiled and said, "Then, open vision." The screen seems to be gotten little bit bigger. So Eileen said, "As my dragon heart recovered quite a bit, the crystal ball screen became much wider now. It's good that the screen is bigger. But the farm is so vast that I can't tell where Sejuan is. Is he home?" Then Eileen looked at Queuing practicing with his stick weapon. Looking at Queuing, Eileen laughed and said, "What? Queuing is flailing a tree branch? How cute." But then she realized there was something different about this stick. Queuing was happily waving the stick everywhere. Then a system message appeared near Queuing. Seeing this, Queuing asked, "Eileen Nuna, did you have a good sleep?" The system message said, The tower manager asks what the suspicious-looking tree branch you're holding is. So Queuing started to explain, it's a tree branch from a corrupted ent that absorbed the energy of the blue moon. Hearing this, Eileen got so surprised and said, corrupted ent that absorbed the energy of the blue moon. Did something like that appear? That must have been hard for the monsters on the 99th floor. How did you face it? Queuing again started to explain what happened. We met Nuna's dad and grandfather through the stone statue you gave. The grandfather in the stone statue was like swoosh, and then flew like whoosh. Bam bam bam. He shot out a very cool beam of light and got rid of them. Hearing this, Eileen asked with a confused look, through the stone statue? Then Eileen's face lit with happiness and said, grandfather did that. With that, today's episode comes to an end. Thank you for watching. And please be kind enough to subscribe.